Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Hopefully, you're all having a smashing Saturday, and as it is Saturday, we are going to try and keep this daily cryptocurrency market update that we do every single day at 1 p.m. UK time short and sweet. And there's some really sweet things to get into. Some rather puzzling news from the likes of Bank of America and Fidelity buying and purchasing MicroStrategy stock in Q1. We will discuss this. We'll look at yesterday's events, and what I'm referring to is the non-farm payroll and the unemployment numbers. And we'll look at the impact that these have had on the markets, most notably the kind of speculative interest rate market, the dollar, the yields, and then we'll kind of reiterate this and round it all into our thesis on where we think Bitcoin is going. You guys know that we've been really buying Bitcoin and crypto, not so much Bitcoin. I'm a lot more bullish on the altcoins than I am Bitcoin since the start of the year, as we thought that, back in January was a better time than any we've had over the prior year to actually look to purchase. And the whole goal with us selling crypto at the start of 2022 was only to repurchase it and ultimately increase the amount of tokens that we believe in over the long term from an investment point of view. So we will talk about that. Let's kick things off with a little bit of news. And this is coming from Bank of America and Fidelity, purchasing over $65 million worth of MicroStrategy stock. Now, this doesn't really make sense to me. I assume that the only reason they're doing this, because I'm not really sure what's going on with MicroStrategy from a business level, other than the fact that they're buying Bitcoin. In fact, and I've always done this really to troll Michael Saylor more than anything, is if you look at MicroStrategy, it's basically just rode off the back end of Bitcoin. So MicroStrategy, a little bit of history, is Michael Saylor's creation. It was about in the dot-com boom and bust. We've done lots of looking into the dot-com boom and bust and comparing that kind of technological market cycle with crypto. But you can see actually, this is basically just Bitcoin that you're seeing in the chart. If we add Bitcoin in, we've not used a long enough chart here, but we have, of course, Bitcoin wasn't around in 2000s. It was about in 2008 for the first time. You can see that it really appreciated with Bitcoin. So this is literally dot-com boom when they started buying Bitcoin. So you can only assume that Bank of America and Fidelity are purchasing MicroStrategy stock to gain Bitcoin exposure in a regulated manner. Remember, and this is one thing that we've said and why we're actually pro in many regards regulations, certainly in the US where it's not, this industry will not exist without it to any significant scale. Because we don't have regulations, big companies like this have to do things like buy MicroStrategy stock. And this, to me, means that Bank of America and Fidelity essentially are looking to ride whatever appreciation Bitcoin's going to get. So maybe they're slightly bullish. Now, you guys know we're bullish. We're not trying to sort of fit our narrative by saying that Bank of America and Fidelity also are. It's largely irrelevant. But they are buying essentially Bitcoin exposure. Remember, we've actually looked at Grayscale's GBTC as a leader of the market or the crypto markets as an institutional kind of vehicle. I do think you are getting a lot more institutional involvement in the crypto space from a speculative investment point of view. But this was just interesting news. Yesterday, of course, now moving on to yesterday's events, we did see non-farm payroll. Non-farm payroll, I think, has beat expectations every month for the past 9 months or so. And it did the same thing this time. Now, why is this important? Why, as crypto people, does this even matter? Well, you know what's driven the markets in 2022 or going into 2022 and up until recently, and still largely so the case, is rate hikes due to inflation. And one of the things that's allowed Jerome Powell to be persistently strong with rate hikes is the fact that he's had a strong labor market. If there was a weak labor market, it's questionable whether they could do what they're doing. But because we've had this better than expected non-farm payroll, it's given Powell the oomph to keep going. Now, if rates drive the markets, what we've seen, although Bitcoin's largely shrugged it off, which is a bullish sign, is again, a beat in expectations. The expectation was at 228,000. We got 236,000. Obviously down significantly from the last one. We also got a slightly lower unemployment number. So this is backing a 2.5 basis point rate hike in the next meeting. And you can see this is the Fed watch tool and it's 71% likelihood of a 25 basis points. So this means the Fed aren't finished hiking. I say it's largely irrelevant, and I think the markets think so also. You know, the markets, if we were back in 2022, the markets would have sold off significantly on this. Bitcoin, this is obviously a weekly, it's been a largely confusing week for Bitcoin, but you typically get this kind of price action before some kind of a break. And we can drop down the time frames once we've finished on this and look at how that occurs. But if you look at the daily candles, it didn't do a lot. So even though actually the rate hike's priced in, the yield market's telling us that that's not the case and they're done with rates, or it's telling us they could maybe get to, remember, the 2-year doesn't perfectly, but it does pretty accurately. I think that's actually probably a long looking at that slightly. The 2 years topped out at 5. So maybe they get to 5.25, you know, if we add the Fed funds here, just to show you this again. Fed funds just follow the yields. And you can see it's not perfect, but this tops out and starts to sell off pretty much when they're done. And we want this sideways period. We've done lots of covering about why we want the sideways period for the rates. Because that, if you overlay the markets, and we'll just look at the most recent example, you know, you can see this sideways period, the market was doing this using the S&P and actually went on to continue to do so even into a pivot. So we want this. This is our window of opportunity before whatever the yield curve is predicting plays out. So that's really the events of yesterday. Of course, the yield market got a bid up. The dollar got a bid, but not massively strong. So, you know, I'd expect a little bit more from the dollar than this on the back end of that. Certainly with another hike coming, which means that demand for the dollar has increased. The fact that Bitcoin largely shrugged all of this off, I think is quite bullish. And I think I have a bias with the markets, obviously, and that is that we've been bullish since the start of the year. And we're ultimately expecting some sort of a 5-wave structure to play out. We've got 35k as a target from the inverse head and shoulders that we were tracking. It's a bit of an interesting ride getting to this point. But Bitcoin's really just consolidating around this sort of key level. You would expect it. Not only is it your 0.236, it's also very key in terms of price action. And actually, you do have a build-up of price here. So you would expect some sort of resistance here, having filled this area in just as much. So whether the question is now, and by the way, guys, a pullback's going to be an opportunity, in my opinion, to accumulate. Not financial advice, just my opinion. By the way, if you want to find out what I'm doing, what I'm buying, my strategy, you want to have weekly meetings with me, please do check the Patreon. Or you can always join it for a month. If it's not for you and you don't think the value's there, you can leave. But we have a very good retention rate. And have done really well over the past year or so. So the question really is do you need some sort of a drawdown before you get that continuation? That's very common. And this is just sideways boring. Take the weekend off from staring at the charts, guys, and come back on Tuesday, as of course it's Easter. Because likely you're not really going to get much going on until the start of the new week. So this news largely hasn't really affected anything. It's, of course, affected the rates market, but the yield market's saying, yeah, maybe. And the markets haven't really reacted that much. And I feel like actually you're going to get this sort of sideways price action until you get some sort of definitive data, which could be a CPI, which I think is going to come out low. I think that could send markets. And I just think largely you're just going to coil up here. But ultimately, whether you have a slight drawdown before you get that upside, which I think is a buying opportunity, or whether you just get the upside is still very telling. You are very much, this is weekly candles. Look at what you've had for the past 3 weeks. That is a swing trader's nightmare. Right there. So you're doing this at key levels. I think everything looks healthy. I think we're ultimately set for upside. Very interesting that Bank of America and Fidelity are actually purchasing MicroStrategy. One can only assume that this is so that they can gain exposure to Bitcoin, or that's my assumption. The kind of, I was about to say Forex news, but the macro news hasn't really played out too much for Bitcoin, which I think is actually a bullish sign. It shows relative strength. If this was already in a weak and wanting to be weak market, it would have used that as an excuse, and it hasn't. It's actually largely not moved. Like I say, this price action, you know, we're really more investment long, and we did take a swing trade yesterday. But apart from that, we're not looking to take part in this from a day trading point of view. Doesn't make sense to me. Good luck. Someone else can have that price action. It's just insanity trading this. So again, whether you have this like gold did, and gold's been pulling back, gold and Bitcoin very tethered, very much in the same category. You can see gold did a similar thing to what Bitcoin did and then popped out the top. But before it popped out the top, it did this. So you may want to, for Bitcoin, I'll just overlay it, want to do something like this and come and retest maybe these levels here, and then it gives you that sort of deviation. I hate using the word deviation because it's been just completely trivialized on Twitter and now everyone uses it. Before you look for that upside, and then we keep going. But you've got this area of congestion we need to get through. I think you're going to get through it. I think if you do get a pullback, potentially that's a buying opportunity, not financial advice, just my own opinion. And we'll look to take this to the upside. So that's really all I've got for you guys. Very interesting news about Fidelity. Very interesting news in regards to non-farm payroll, its reaction or its action on the markets, which is largely lackluster from Bitcoin's point of view, from the stock market point of view, even from the dollar. Yield's got a big bid, but that's obviously an expectation of rate hikes. And actually, if you look at where the yields are, you know, it's technically quite plausible that they were going to get that bid. And on that note, I will love and leave you. Have a fantastic Saturday. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. Hit that like button and leave me a comment. It's very much appreciated. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next.